Warning, the following craft project is cute. There's nothing eldritch, demonic, or undead about it. If the thought of kittens in feety pajamas, Disney Channel reruns, or Tom Holland make you ill, please do not attempt this craft. If cuteness overload commences, please watch alternative episodes of Miniture Mash-up until the sensation passes. It's not a bird exactly. I worship the cycle of change which is embodied in birds. You see, the gods have put birds in all lands so that men might understand the cycle of the soul. When a bird is in his shell, that is his whole world. Inside he knows nothing, not even himself. He knows not even his own needs, because they are all being met. When he loses his shell, a bird learns hunger and a mother's love. Then it must leave its parents and soar, to learn to hunt and fight and raise offspring of its own. And then when its final day comes, it must lose its shell again to be born into the next world, when an entire new set of needs it didn't know it had will be waiting for him.
As a hatchling?
Of a sort in the next world, yes.
Who's its mother in the next world?
Ancestors, of course.
So then why are there ghosts?
They are hatchlings that refuse to leave the nest, too afraid to fly.
She's coming back. Let's lay off the spirit bird talk.
Another cider?
Please, we're meeting some friends here to celebrate.
What's the occasion?
They're seeing us off. We're leaving for Elza Turin tonight.
Not interested.
Whoa, wait. You didn't even hear my pitch.
Yes, I have. I hear it every week. It's gotten around that I know the path through the storm peaks that'll take you right into the heart of Elza Turin. So every week, some ambitious fool promises me half a treasure they have no hope of claiming, and every week they go off without me to die in the Badlands. This shop gives me all the coin I need. I don't need to pick through an elven ruin looking for profit.
Baldwin Bloodaxe! Here they are now. I thought we'd agreed on discretion, Karis.
You have the stone?
We do.
Hand it over.
I don't see any gold.
On reconsideration, the Dukes decided that you should finish your sentence in Blackrock after all. We'll be taking the gem. You'll be taking a beating.
D&D is morally deficient.
Dungeons and Dragons.
It's spiritually corrupt. It is educationally evil because it teaches evil, and it is potentially dangerous.
Mazes and monsters, far out gate.
Now I am making your silver pants blue.
I'd like to give a special shout out and thank you to a fan of the show, David Peterson, who sent me this care package full of goodies. He also sent me this 34-ounce Arizona iced tea, which I needed for a project that will hopefully be a video coming up. He sent me some blue poster tack and some puff paint here, some craft stuff, some kind of magnetic strips, and got a Wizards primed griffin here, and a whole bunch of random little critters, and there's even a mussel in there, which is awesome. These are my favorite toys as a kid. A giant cockroach, some horses and stuff, so all kinds of goodies here. Thank you, David, and this episode is for you, so I hope you get some enjoyment out of it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that he sent me this hand-carved out of basswood pillar. This thing is surprisingly light, very detailed. I said it didn't take that long to do, but it sure looks like a lot of work went into it, so thanks again. This week we're going to make a cute little apple stand for your farmer's market or shire or fair or peasant village. I'll be the first to admit this project looks a little bit like something your grandma would put on her shelf, but it's a super fast build and is largely made of garbage, and certainly this structure should run you no more than a couple of bucks and take about 2 hours or less to complete. And of course, I don't create these videos so you can do exactly what I do. You don't have to make it the same way. All of the projects that created on the show are designed to be more of a launching pad for your own ideas. Take what you can use and leave the rest. So the core of this project is the top of this old bottle of lemon juice. You gotta find one of these bottles of lemon or lime juice that has a stylized lemon on the top. We are going to clean it out, take the peel, take the label off, or even peel the label off. I'm gonna take my little hobby saw and chop this top ring off. I'm also gonna cut the opening of the bottle, the screw top part off here. I'm just gonna make quick work of this with our hobby saw. Try to cut it as straight and cleanly as possible. And I could use another blade, but I find that the hobby saw gives me a nice, straight, controlled cuts. I'm like hacking away at it with a pair of wire clippers or something. Now I'm going to cut a doorway and also a window into this with my safety knife. So be careful with this, obviously. Don't be like me, put on a pair of gloves. This was pretty dumb of me to handle this with my bare hands. Could have sliced myself up pretty good. So you can see I'm just kind of freehanding this window here. Probably better to draw that in and get a better sense of what you want beforehand. It worked out perfectly for me, but normally I try to trace stuff out like I did here with the doorway. Ironically, because as you'll see, the doorway needs some extra work when I'm all through with it. Now, when you're done cutting all that up, we're going to hot glue it down to a base. I'm just using a piece of round cardboard. I've got a lot of these. I think they look pretty neat. I like their perfectly circular shape. And I put it in the center there. And we've got most of our structure already. Now, I've got one of these doors I've made out of Durham's Rock Hard Putty. It's based off of a recreation of an amulet I put into a silicone mold. I put these on a lot of my structure. Any kind of structures I create, I usually use one of these. I'm going to hot glue this right into place here. And I'm going to put it down on the cardboard, get it in there. I'm going to add a little more hot glue on the side to get that to stick to the side here. Now, I think you might already be able to tell there's a gap here because of the weird lemon shape, and I didn't consider that. If I worked the door all the way in, that gap would still be there. There'd be no really good way to cover that up. So we're gonna have to come back with putty later. On the top of the lemon, where I cut the screwed cap off of the bottle, I'm gonna use a little hot glue. And then I've just got one of these big artificial leaves that came off a fake plant. I'm always breaking up fake plants for stuff. This is like a holly leaf. We're just gonna cover that up so it looks kind of like a stylized leaf on top of a fruit. And here's my putty I'm using. I had to fill up a pipe that had broken the backyard, and this is a waterproof 2-part epoxy, but it's essentially a waterproof green stuff, which turned white once I mixed it together. You can see I'm not much of a sculptor. I rolled a little bit of it out and I put it around the window. We're turning this into bricks, and I'm just using a nail to kind of get that brick shape. Wish I was a better sculptor. Surely most of you are probably better at this than I. Could have took a little more time with it, but the epoxy was drying, and I'm just trying to slap this project together real quick here. And we're going to put a little more putty on the side here, a little more of that 2-part epoxy in between the door, and it looks like part of the door frame, which is nice, and the finished product is quite acceptable. I think. And then I'm gonna use that nail again to just sort of draw a brick pattern into that putty to make it look like some exposed brick. Holding that door on there. And just doing my best with my limited sculpting ability. And we're going to copy that same effect on the other side as well. Just roll that putty in there and squeeze it in with my thumb. You'll see when I'm working with this kind of epoxy, I'm wearing some plastic gloves just so I don't get that stuff in my fingers. It's a pain to wash off. Now we're going to start working on our serving counter here for our apple stand. A place to set out pies and serve drinks on. It's going to come out of the main window. And again, I'm just sort of freehanding here. You might want to eyeball this a little better. I just put this, this is a large size popsicle stick. I just put it right up to the window and got a sense of what would fit in there, what's going to work in that window when it's glued in. And I just cut it with a heavy set of wire cutters. And we're going to just hot glue that into place. Now I take some bottle caps. These are soda bottle caps. This is actually probably the lemon Cat from the lemon juice right here on the left, so, you know, just using the same stuff. And I'm hot gluing them down to the cardboard here, around here, in sort of a random pattern. These are going to be our baskets of apples. We'll throw a little hot glue inside the cap, and you can fill this with almost anything. This is just filler, but I've got a ton of these tiny wooden checkerboard pieces. I don't know, what do you call it? Playing pieces from checkers? That'll work. And I'm just filling it up. And then on top, we're using hot glue for all this. I'm just putting a bunch of these small wooden beads I've got. I got a bag of tiny wooden beads. My girlfriend does beading, so she's always getting rid of stuff. She doesn't want to have use for these, so I put them in. And those are going to be our apples. They're going to be like Fuji apples or something kind of big, but quite passable once painted up. And we're just going to throw a little watered down white PVA glue on the front and the back, and then just to flock this project here, shake off the excess sand. We're going to put some of our craft sand on there, as we always do. And I primed this puppy in gray instead of black because it is kind of a lighter project. And then I'm just going to hot glue down some recreated crates and barrels made with Durham's Rock Hard Putty from a mold I used, and the littlest one, of course, made of hot glue, just to stick that around the back, make it look a little bit more like a shop. I'm going to slap a bunch of paint on everything. Pretty obvious color choices here, nothing too creative. I think I'm starting with brick red on the apples. I'm just sort of working my way up, maybe a slightly lighter red. I do believe I put a dark wash on them as well to get in there and get in the shadows, and everything else is a fairly basic paint job that I do. You know, brown on the crates and barrels, that's, you know, a real surprise. Brown on the wooden door in the back, although I am going to pick out, because of sort of the leaf theme of the structure, I do pick out the green vines on the door this time. A lot of the times I just leave that whole thing brown. And green on the grass, nothing too crazy here. Just sort of slopping down a big, fat, damp, thin base coat to go over again. I like to use multiple thin coats, even on a project like this. I always thin my paints. It's just a good habit to stay in. I'm using a pretty big brush because this is a big project. I don't want to be here all day, drive yourself crazy using some kind of a fine detail brush you'd use on your miniatures. In fact, I just picked up another large brush for myself out at the Scrap Exchange, which is kind of like a thrift store for artists over in Durham, North Carolina. Because I do have more terrain stuff coming up, and you just can't get enough big brushes. Here it is, pretty serviceable now. Just gray, and you know, all the base coats are in, but we're gonna do a little more detail work. Like I said, I put a wash on the apples. I think the apples turned out really nice, and you know, put the washes in, and then the highlights finally. Obviously, I have to go back and clean up all the places where I've, you know, gotten red on the gray stone or green from the grass on the gray stone. There's a little cleanup work. It's sort of the last step, but the important thing, I think, in the beginning is just to get coverage as quickly as possible, and then you can take your time doing the cleanup work. You can see those dark washes really make a difference on the apples. I think I'm using Nun oil here. From Games Workshop, which is just a black wash, but it really puddles up nicely in the cracks and kind of gives a gloss to the apples. It's nice.
Well, my shop is a ruin, my stock has been burned, and there's no way I can have it reopened in time for the fall festival, which means you owe me a large sum of money.
We don't have any. We were waiting on Karis to pay us so we could get horses and provisions before we went to Elza Terren.
What about the stone they were after?
I don't think we can sell it here. No one would risk crossing the Duke like that.
So, Elza Terren then. Fine, help me start loading the cart, and my cut is 60%.